Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another video. I usually make videos Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays. It just depends on how busy I am, but I always make around 1 to 2 videos per week. Today's Wednesday, so I got a video for you. We're gonna, originally I was just gonna talk about the website that I'm building, which I want to tell you about. But actually, I'm gonna read some of what I've written and what I've got down on my website as well. So we're gonna talk about the moon landing. I'm not going to tell you what the name of the website is. It's a surprise. I'm going to hype it up, try to get you guys excited over this. If you follow my social media accounts, I got official Concave Earth, and then the controversial duck or Concave Earth official. And I've been posting on those sites, talking about how I'm building websites. So here we're going to talk about the moon landing. And it says, so I'm just going to read this little article that I'm working on. I'm making a lot of stuff. I haven't finished this yet. Obviously, the moon landing is a pretty big topic. And so, I'm going to make this is kind of a short video talking about that. Because if you want, and I've already recommended it in this article, but there's a documentary called American Moon. It is a fantastic documentary, and I have had yet anybody to try and disprove or even come close to disproving any of the stuff in there. So let's go ahead and read this article. So it says moon landings, and we have some pictures. We have a parallax GIF right there. So here we go. For many people, the denial of the moon landings somehow equates to the denial of their very American citizenship. This is in large part not their fault, however. Volumes could be written on the amount of fiction of space travel and the exploration of different worlds, let alone Hollywood depictions of going to the moon, Mars, and other alleged final frontier destinations that has been ingrained in our culture. Consider a scenario where a person says baseball and football sucks. Attacking something considered to be part of the heart of America provokes a visceral reaction with many people. To question the moon landings, however, well, that's the Holy Grail. You're arresting ego and awe in one foul swoop, and for many Americans, one reason or another will cause them to close their eyes before you get past two words, fake and Apollo. When I first found myself in the conspiracy realm years ago as a teenager, the first thing I happened upon was the moon landings. As a kid, it had never even entered my thinking that people disagreed with the idea that we went to the moon. In middle school, I was fortunate enough to see one of the space shuttles launch into orbit inside the Earth, and up until the moment I saw a moon landing conspiracy video, I had no reason to think NASA would fake anything. In fact, upon first hearing what I was told, I had the same reaction most people have, or previously described. I had the desire to ignore what was in front of me for the comfort of retaining what I already wanted to believe. For whatever reason, however, I was just too curious in what they had to say, and very quickly moved from someone who seeks reassurance of what they want to be true to someone who searches for the truth regardless of the results. And I have my cat right here trying to come and read with us. I'm trying to keep her on the little shelf. Okay, now on to hard, cold, stainless steel, smack you in the face evidence. Okay, the Van Allen radiation belts. The Van Allen radiation belts are large bands of radiation trapped in the Earth's magnetic field. When light travels in the form of radiation from the sun to the Earth, the field encases our planet in a cocoon of radiation, or so the story goes. Okay, so honestly, I think there is radiation up inside of the concave Earth, but obviously it doesn't go 15,000 miles around, considering the Earth is only 8,000 miles in diameter. Okay, so I guess the second belt could be considered BS, but the first belt entirely possible, right? Okay, so let's read on. In January of 1951, James Van Allen and his associates launched the first U.S. space satellite called Explorer 1, which led to the discovery of the Van Allen belts. For now, let's assume all of this is correct and pretend a convex world for the sake of argument. Okay, there are two belts of radiation high above the Earth. The first belt is from around 600 miles above the Earth to 3,000 miles up. The second belt extends from around 9,300 miles to 15,000 miles. according to an article written by Scientific American in 1959, just 10 years prior to the first alleged landings, they had this to say regarding the belts. This discovery is of course troubling to astronauts. Somehow the human body will have to be shielded from this radiation, even on a rapid transit through the region. Okay, interesting. If that is not enough for you, take it from the discoverer's mouth himself and in the article called The Danger Zone Under Space World, December of 1961. Owing to the great penetrability of the high-energy protons therein, the belts, effective shielding is quite beyond engineering feasibility in the near future. 1961. Okay, that's 9 years before they alleged. You think that's the near future? I don't think so. Now, a firm believer in the Apollo missions will not be fazed in the slightest by these quotes. Everything in the minds of die-hard moon landing or moon lover. Everything in the minds of die-hard moon-loving NASA suckers, no offense, has some type of explanation. Whether, here we go with the cat. She wants to. Alright, so let me start from that. Everything in the minds of die-hard moon-loving NASA suckers, no offense, has some type of explanation, whether rational or irrational. The clear next argument would go something like this. Reading as Napoleon Dynamite. Well, that's... okay, I'm trying to get my Napoleon Dynamite impression. Well, that's what they said before the moon landings. Obviously, they discovered the belts weren't as dangerous as they found a way to get past the radiation, contrary to what Mr. Van Allen thought. Duh! Okay, so Napoleon, how do you explain the following quote by NASA engineer Kelly Smith? Now, this is much farther in the future, not that long ago. As we get further away from Earth, we will pass through the Van Allen radiation belts, an area of dangerous radiation. Radiation like this could harm the guidance systems, onboard computers, or other electronics on Orion. Naturally, we have to pass through this danger zone twice, once up and once back. But Orion has protection. Shielding will be put to the test as the vehicle cuts through the waves of radiation. Sensors aboard will record radiation levels for scientists to study. We must solve these challenges before we send people through this region of space. Okay. Now, if we really, really wanted to break this down, somebody out there is going to say, well, what they mean by before we send people through this region of space is now we have all this technology, and if we're going to send somebody through space and get them past the Van Allen radiation belts, they need these electronics to go there. So he's not saying that the radiation will kill the astronauts. That's not what he's saying in this last sentence. He's saying that they need the guidance systems and the equipment, and it can't survive going through, but the people can, obviously. Maybe he's not talking about the people. Maybe he's just talking about the technology, because obviously the technology carries the people to space. And if we don't have that technology worked out, because, with motherboards and circuitry and electronics, when these particles are hitting that, it's a bad idea. Bad things can happen, and obviously we have electronics, which we really didn't in the 1960s. So so really it's not that we can't send the people through there because the space is safe and all that stuff, and it's not that bad radiation. We go so fast. So it's the electronics, right? Okay, well, why don't I entertain you on that thought at nasa.gov, where we have this quote: "We study radiation belts because they pose a hazard to spacecraft and astronauts," said David Sybeck, the Van Allen probe's mission scientist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland, who was not involved with the paper. Okay, so that's what we're talking about here. And another thing is, there's some bull crap going around for a long time. I'm not totally sure where it is, but they try to say that the radiation was not as bad in certain areas, like at the North Pole and the South Pole, and so the spaceship took a northern trajectory over the radiation, and so they skirted around. So they said they skirted around the Van Allen belts and went so fast that they barely went through any radiation. They were all fine, right? Okay, well, let's test that hypothesis. So here's another image of the same picture that I just showed you over here. What is it? No, this image. Okay, this is the same picture, basically. or from the same time period as this image. And this image has the date on the bottom, NASA number blah blah 6/11/69. Okay, this shows you the path by NASA of the lunar missions. Now the thing that they try to say is that the spacecraft took a northern trajectory far above in the North Pole above these Van Allen belts. Okay, well, if you can look at this right here, and there's plenty of other pictures of them going into orbit, and they're going around the equator. They go around the equator and then allegedly to the moon, right? So that was their stated trajectory, is around the equator. Okay, so how do you explain that one, NASA? Contradictions. You think people are going to forget, and then somehow that information ends up on the internet. So, yeah, they did go through the intense radiation, and we have allegedly astronauts that were up in space far below the radiation belts, and they could feel the effects of the radiation. But anyways, of course, there's always something that they will say, but we don't need to solely focus on radiation to make our argument. We have plenty of other ones coming up. I'm going to be making an article on communications delay. There's absolutely no communications delay. You'll notice that when they're talking, okay, he says, "Hey, mission control, how's it going?" And then he says, "Oh, how's it going, Dave?" Right? And there's a gap of like less than a second on some of these communications, like to a second to less than a second. And this is completely impossible if they were really on the moon, because as we know, the moon is so far away, it would take a certain amount of time for it to get back, and it's been calculated to be like 2.5 seconds or something like that. And if you look at the original footage from the original DVDs and non-edited, you will see no delay. And what's even funnier is that on the ones that have been edited and remastered by NASA, somehow these delays have been put into the communications, and you'll see 4-second delays put in when the original footage had almost no second delay. So it's very interesting, to say the least. And so let's read the last little paragraph right here. A documentary I must recommend, which runs around 3 hours, is one of the best sources of information you can currently get your hands on regarding the faking of the moon landing. This documentary is called American Moon by Massimo Muzzucco, who is an Italian filmmaker. I will link his documentary in the sources section of the website, as I will certainly use many of the great pieces of evidence he shows in his film. So there we go. And so this website, we're going to have International Space Station covered, Mars missions, images of Earth and space, statements from NASA, evidence against the spinning ball, and then we'll get into concave Earth evidence, indirect, and all that stuff. So anyways, thank you guys for watching, and check out my other videos. I have a video on parallax. So there we go. Can't wait to get this website to you guys.